On an ordinary autumn night in 1991, under the quiet skies of Chiba, Japan, 4 teenage girls embarked on a simple midnight adventure. They were full of life, pedaling their bikes down deserted streets, laughing, and chasing the thrill of freedom. Their mission was harmless, just a late-night run to grab some snacks. The air was crisp, and the streets were unusually silent, except for the faint hum of the girls' chatter and the soft echo of their bike tires. But as the clock ticked past midnight, that silence became unsettling. Shadows stretched unnaturally under dim streetlights, and the empty roads began to feel less inviting. The laughter faded into uneasy whispers, and every rustle of leaves carried an edge of dread. Among the 4, 13-year-old Nana Sakuma led the way. Bright, kind, and full of promise, Nana was the heart of her group. Yet that night, as the friends rode back home with their snacks in hand, an accident stopped them in their tracks. Nana's bike slipped on storm debris, sending her to the ground. It seemed like just a small moment of bad luck, but then, a figure emerged from the darkness. He was a man they had never seen before, standing unnervingly still at the edge of the road. His voice broke the silence, sharp and commanding, as he questioned why the girls were out so late. Claiming to be a security officer, he turned his attention to Nana, his presence unsettling and his intentions unclear. What began as an innocent outing quickly spiraled into something far more sinister, leaving questions that would haunt the quiet streets of Chiba for decades to come. The setting of this haunting story unfolds in Chiba, Japan, a region known for its proximity to Tokyo and its blend of urban energy and suburban calm. In 1991, Chiba was home to over 6 million people, a bustling prefecture filled with residential neighborhoods, quiet parks, and the occasional whisper of city life. Among its many districts was Wakaba Ward, where Nana Sakuma lived with her mother and grandmother in a modest apartment. It was a home filled with warmth, though modest in size. Nana's life, by all accounts, was as ordinary as it was endearing. She was a bright, cheerful 7th grader at Daiko Junior High, a school not far from her home. Despite her parents' separation, Nana thrived under the love of her mother and grandmother, both of whom provided a stable and nurturing environment. She was well liked by her peers, quick to smile, and eager to help others, a personality that seemed to light up any room she entered. But like many teenagers, she also enjoyed the small rebellions of youth, from staying out late with friends to dreaming of adventures beyond her quiet neighborhood. The night of October 26, 1991, began like any other for Nana. She had spent the day at a friend's house, laughing and relaxing after a grueling round of midterm exams. Her mother was working a late shift, leaving Nana and her friends free to plan a sleepover filled with games, TV shows, and of course, snacks. It was a carefree time, the kind of night every teenager dreams of, until the small hunger pangs turned their attention to the nearest convenience store. In 1991, 24-hour stores weren't as common in Chiba as they are today. The closest shop had already closed for the night, but one of the girls remembered another store farther away that stayed open all night. The idea of venturing out into the stillness of the late hour was thrilling, almost like an adventure. The group decided to take their bikes and make the trip together, their laughter echoing softly as they pedaled along empty streets. The area around Wakaba Ward was a mix of quiet residential zones and rural pockets, with roads winding past fields and clusters of trees. Under normal circumstances, it was a safe, peaceful neighborhood. But that night, something felt different. The streets were eerily quiet, the kind of silence that seems to watch and wait. The girls chatted and joked as they rode. But there was an undercurrent of unease, a feeling that grew heavier with every turn of the pedals. As they reached the convenience store and stocked up on snacks, the sense of relief was short-lived. On their way back, the quiet of the night pressed down on them. The roads stretched endlessly, lit only by the dim glow of sporadic streetlights. It was as if the neighborhood itself had gone to sleep, leaving the 4 girls alone with their thoughts and the sound of their tires on the pavement. That stretch of road between the store and Nana's home would become the center of one of Japan's most enduring mysteries. On a seemingly ordinary street, under the faint light of a few street lamps, a chain of events was set into motion that would change the lives of everyone involved. It wasn't just the darkness of the hour that cloaked the area. It was the unsettling reality that someone else was out there, watching. Chiba, like many parts of Japan, was not accustomed to violent crimes. It was a place where children played freely in the streets, and neighbors knew one another by name. The idea that anything sinister could happen here felt unthinkable. Yet, as the four girls ventured deeper into the night, the ordinary turned ominous. Nana, always the brave and outgoing one, led the group on their bikes. The cool air bit at their cheeks, and the occasional rustle of leaves reminded them of the recent storm that had swept through the area. Debris littered the roads. Small branches, scattered leaves, and the remnants of uprooted trees. It was on one of these stretches that Nana's bike hit something in the road, throwing her to the ground. Her friends quickly surrounded her, helping her up and brushing dirt from her clothes. Nana laughed it off, embarrassed but unharmed. It was a minor accident, the kind of moment they'd laugh about later. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, a figure appeared. He stepped out from the shadows, his presence both sudden and unnerving. He wasn't someone they recognized. A middle-aged man, stocky, with a commanding presence that silenced the group instantly. His voice was sharp, almost accusing, as he questioned why they were out so late. He claimed to be a security officer, patrolling the area to ensure safety. For a moment, his story seemed plausible. After all, he looked the part, his clothing neat but casual, his demeanor stern yet authoritative. But there was something in the way he spoke, something in the way his eyes lingered on Nana, that made the girls uneasy. As the man addressed them, his tone grew more insistent. He focused on Nana, telling the others to go home while she stayed behind to explain herself. It was an order, not a request, and his imposing presence left the girls too scared to argue. Nana, caught between fear and compliance, followed him without protest. Her friends watched as the man and Nana disappeared into the shadows, their figures swallowed by the darkness of a side street. The girls, unsure of what to do, hesitated. They wanted to believe he was who he said he was. They wanted to believe Nana would be safe. But as the minutes turned to hours and Nana didn't return, that fragile hope began to crack. As the cold night pressed on, the three girls stood frozen in the stillness outside Nana's home. Their bikes leaned against the wall. They hadn't anticipated this pause in their evening adventure, the moment when Nana would be led away by a stranger claiming authority, leaving them behind with unanswered questions and growing unease. The man had been firm and intimidating, and his demand that Nana follow him seemed both frightening and, somehow in their youthful innocence, reasonable. After all, he had identified himself as a security officer, and the idea of someone holding them accountable for being out so late felt plausible in the quiet suburbs of 1991 Chiba. They told themselves that Nana would return quickly. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe she'd explain and be sent on her way. Time slipped by as they stood there, watching the road for her return. At first, they reassured one another that she'd be back soon. But as minutes turned to an hour, their unease began to grow into something heavier, something darker. The air grew colder, the quiet more oppressive. With no sign of Nana and no way to contact her, the girls started to realize the weight of the situation. They hadn't questioned the man's story at the time. He had spoken with such authority, so firmly, that they hadn't even thought to challenge him. But now, standing in the shadowy stillness of the early morning hours, doubt crept in. What if he hadn't been who he claimed to be? What if Nana was in danger? Unable to wait any longer, the girls finally decided to seek help. At around 3 a.m., they approached two older boys, acquaintances from their school, who happened to be walking by. Nervously, they recounted the events of the night, the crash, the man, and Nana's reluctant departure with him. The boys immediately sensed the gravity of the situation and accompanied the girls back to Nana's house, where they knocked on the door to wake her grandmother. Nana's grandmother, startled awake and confused by the sudden commotion, quickly called Nana's mother, who was working the night shift. The sense of dread in the grandmother's voice must have conveyed enough, as Nana's mother left work immediately to come home. By the time she arrived, the initial haze of confusion had given way to outright fear. Nana's bike, snacks, and belongings had been left behind at the spot where she had been taken. There was no note, no sign, and no explanation for where she might have gone. As the hours ticked by, Nana's mother and grandmother decided they couldn't wait any longer. At 4:20 a.m., they went to the nearest police station to report her missing. The officers on duty initially treated the case cautiously. After all, many teenagers went missing temporarily, only to return home after a night out with friends. But as they listened to the details, the unknown man, the quiet street, and the fact that Nana had never been the type to disappear, they realized this was no ordinary situation. By sunrise, investigators were dispatched to the intersection on Route 126, the last known location of Nana and the mysterious man. The area was combed carefully, but there were few clues. The road was surrounded by trees and undergrowth, with only a narrow path leading to an abandoned garage nearby. This garage, officers theorized, could have been a potential location where something might have occurred, but it was locked and showed no signs of recent use. Beyond the garage, the narrow road opened up to a larger intersection, flanked by residential areas. If Nana had been taken further down the road, she could have been moved out of sight quickly. Witnesses were scarce, but one truck driver came forward, reporting that he had seen a young girl walking with two men not far from the intersection at around 1:30 a.m., roughly an hour after Nana was last seen by her friends. The description of one of the men loosely matched the stranger who had confronted the girls earlier, though the second man was unknown. Another witness claimed to have seen a man and a girl walking together near a residential neighborhood at around 4 a.m., this time much further north. These sightings offered a chilling possibility that Nana had initially complied with the man's demands, but was later joined or handed off to someone else. It wasn't clear why the man would have needed an accomplice or where they might have been heading, but the timeline suggested Nana had been on the move for several hours before vanishing completely. The police turned their attention back to the mysterious man. Using the descriptions provided by Nana's friends, they constructed a sketch: a middle-aged man, stocky, with a round face and sharp eyes. He had worn a striped shirt, dark shorts, and a knit cap. But beyond this composite, there was little else to go on. The man's claim of being a security officer was quickly disproven, as there were no such patrols in the area that night. This revelation only deepened the mystery. Who was he, and why had he approached the girls? Flyers with Nana's photo and the man's sketch were distributed across Chiba, plastered at train stations, convenience stores, and bus stops. Her description: 13 years old, 5 feet tall with a small mole under her left eye, was broadcast on local news channels. But as the days turned to weeks, the case grew colder. No physical evidence tied the man to any location, and none of the potential witnesses had seen enough to provide a clear lead. The abandoned garage near the site yielded no DNA or clues, and nearby residents reported nothing unusual that night. In the absence of surveillance cameras, investigators were left piecing together a puzzle with missing pieces. For Nana's family, the lack of closure was unbearable. Her mother refused to believe she was gone for good, holding on to the hope that Nana might one day walk back through the door. But as years passed, the case of Nana Sakuma became another chilling statistic, one of the many unsolved disappearances that haunt Japan. The tragedy left the community of Chiba shaken. Parents became more cautious, warning their children to avoid staying out late or talking to strangers. But for those closest to Nana, the questions remained. Who was the man, and why had he chosen her? Was this a crime of opportunity, or had he been watching the group that night, waiting for a moment to strike? As investigators reviewed the timeline, they couldn't help but note the eerie precision of the man's actions. He had appeared at just the right moment, exploiting the girls' confusion and fear. He had used authority as a tool, convincing them he was someone to be trusted, even if just temporarily. It was a tactic that suggested planning, perhaps even prior experience. And yet, despite these observations, the man himself vanished as completely as Nana had. There were no sightings of him after that night, no arrests matching his description, and no other reports of similar incidents in the area. He had slipped into the shadows, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and broken hearts. The story of Nana Sakuma is not just one of loss, but also one of lingering mystery. It is a reminder of how quickly an ordinary night can spiral into something unimaginable, how fleeting safety can feel when darkness falls, and how some questions may never find their answers. In the absence of concrete evidence, the disappearance of Nana Sakuma has inspired countless theories, each more unsettling than the last. Investigators, journalists, and armchair detectives alike have pored over the available details, trying to piece together what might have happened that fateful night. The lack of clarity surrounding the stranger's identity and intentions has left room for speculation. some of which paints an ominous picture of premeditated actions and chilling motives. One of the most prominent theories revolves around the man's claim to be a security officer. His demeanor, as described by Nana's friends, suggested someone accustomed to authority, someone who knew how to command attention and obedience. This raises the possibility that the man had practiced this behavior before, potentially as part of a broader pattern. Could he have been someone familiar with the area, someone who had observed the girls before approaching them? The timing of his appearance, just as Nana fell from her bike, seemed almost too coincidental, leading some to believe he had been watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. The man's reference to a truck when the girls asked about Nana's bike has also been scrutinized. This detail, seemingly minor at first, takes on greater significance when paired with the witness account of two men seen with a young girl near the intersection. Some speculate that the man might have been a truck driver, using his vehicle to transport Nana away from the area quickly. This theory is bolstered by the fact that Route 126, where the incident occurred, is a major thoroughfare with easy access to other parts of Chiba and beyond. If the man had access to a truck, he could have moved Nana far from the scene in a matter of minutes, effectively erasing any trace of her presence. Another theory suggests that the man may not have acted alone. The witness report of two men accompanying a girl shortly after Nana's disappearance raises the possibility of an accomplice. This complicates the narrative, suggesting that the incident may have been more than a random act. Could this have been part of an organized operation, perhaps involving individuals who targeted vulnerable young people under the cover of night? The involvement of a second person would explain how Nana might have been kept compliant over an extended period and how she might have been moved discreetly through residential areas. The behavior of Nana's friends that night has also been subject to analysis, though not with blame, but with an attempt to understand the dynamics at play. The girls, all in their early teens, were placed in an extraordinary situation, faced with an adult figure asserting authority in a manner they likely hadn't encountered before. Their compliance, while heartbreaking in retrospect, was likely driven by fear and a desire to avoid further trouble. It's a chilling reminder of how easily a facade of authority can be weaponized, especially against those too young to question it. The abandoned garage near the scene has also drawn significant attention. While police searches of the site yielded no evidence, some have questioned whether the man might have used it as a temporary hiding place before moving Nana elsewhere. Its proximity to the site of the incident makes it a plausible point of interest, but without physical evidence, this remains speculative. Similarly, the broader area surrounding Route 126, rural in parts and dotted with secluded spots, has been explored as a potential factor in why no further traces of Nana were ever found. Theories also extend to the possibility that the man may have been a transient individual, someone passing through the area with no ties to the local community. This would explain why no one recognized him or came forward with information about his identity. If he had no fixed residence or connections to Chiba, his movements would have been difficult to trace, allowing him to vanish just as suddenly as he appeared. Finally, the question of motive looms large over the case. Was this a crime of opportunity, with the man acting on impulse after seeing the group of girls? Or was it something more deliberate, a carefully planned act that took advantage of the vulnerability of teenagers in an isolated area? The possibility of premeditation raises even darker implications, suggesting that Nana's disappearance may have been part of a broader, calculated intent. What makes the case so haunting is the sheer number of unanswered questions. Every piece of evidence, or lack thereof, seems to lead to another dead end. The man's identity, his intentions, and what became of Nana remain shrouded in mystery. Even the witness reports, while valuable, offer no definitive answers. Only fragments of a puzzle that refuses to come together. The psychological toll on those involved cannot be overlooked. For Nana's friends, the guilt of not questioning the man's authority sooner must weigh heavily. For her family, the endless cycle of hope and despair has likely become a permanent part of their lives. And for the broader community, the incident serves as a stark reminder of how quickly normalcy can be shattered, how fleeting safety can feel when trust is misplaced. What lingers most is the unsettling realization that whoever was responsible for Nana's disappearance remains out there, their secrets locked away, hidden in the shadows of that quiet October night. The disappearance of Nana Sakuma remains a chilling and unresolved mystery that continues to captivate and unsettle. It is a story of innocence abruptly interrupted, of an ordinary night turned into a haunting memory. Despite extensive investigations, multiple witness accounts, and years of speculation, the truth remains elusive. The unanswered questions surrounding Nana's fate serve as a stark reminder of how fragile safety can be, and how, in the blink of an eye, a life can vanish without a trace. The sketch of the unknown man, the unverified sightings, and the eerie silence of that night all contribute to the enduring sense of unease surrounding the case. Was it a random encounter, or had the man carefully planned his actions? Was he local, or did he disappear into the anonymity of a transient lifestyle? These questions, though unanswered, have sparked countless discussions and theories, each reflecting the desperation to uncover the truth. This case also highlights the importance of vigilance and the need for communities to work together to protect their most vulnerable members. Nana's story reminds us of the value of questioning authority, of trusting instincts when something feels wrong, and of speaking up when something seems out of place. It's a narrative that urges us to stay alert and to look out for one another, even in the quietest corners of the world. For Nana's family and friends, the pain of not knowing lingers, a wound that time cannot heal. For those who hear her story, it is an opportunity to reflect on the fragility of life and the importance of staying vigilant, especially when it comes to the safety of loved ones. While the mystery may never be fully solved, it's through the act of remembering Nana and sharing her story that we honor her life and continue the search for justice. As you listen to this story, what theories come to mind? Do you believe this was the work of a single individual, or could there have been more people involved? And what do you think could have been done differently that night to prevent this tragedy? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Your insights might shed a light on new possibilities, or help keep Nana's memory alive, ensuring her story is never forgotten. The disappearance of Nana Sakuma draws unsettling parallels to other cases of unsolved mysteries around the world, where young individuals vanish without a trace. Similar stories, such as the case of Johnny Ghosh in the United States or Madeleine McCann in the UK, highlight a grim reality. No matter the location, no community is entirely immune to such tragedies. These cases share common threads: the haunting absence of evidence, the unanswered questions, and the emotional toll left on families and communities. But they also serve as a powerful reminder of the importance of awareness, safety measures, and vigilance. Advances in technology, such as widespread surveillance cameras and faster communication tools, have improved response times in emergencies today compared to 1991. Yet, cases like this, Nana's, continue to underscore the importance of looking out for one another, fostering stronger bonds within communities, and being unafraid to question authority when something feels amiss. As we reflect on Nana's story, it's impossible not to feel the weight of the mystery and the lives it has touched. Her disappearance remains a painful reminder of how fleeting life's moments can be and how critical it is to stay alert, not only for ourselves, but for those around us. What do you think could have been done differently to prevent tragedies like this? Have other cases come to mind that share eerie similarities with Nana's story? Share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below, because by discussing, remembering, and learning, we can honor the memory of those like Nana and ensure that their stories are never forgotten. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.